Hi, I'm Cindy Galvin, and I'm here with Marion Bourne, and we're the founders of Catalyst Thinking, a company that's dedicated to achieving change with employee health. Now, employee health has always been an issue that companies worried about, but it's never been as important as it is this year because UK employees are experiencing unprecedented high levels of stress due to the spread of COVID and also the impact of working at home. Now, what's interesting is that none of us had expected this to happen this year, and the normal reasons of why people feel stress have changed as a result of what's going on. In the past, employees usually felt higher levels of stress due to working for what they considered to be difficult bosses, or they had really torturous commutes into the office, or they had a lot of pressing deadlines. But now what we've discovered is that these have changed to fear. People are afraid of losing their job. People who are out of a job are afraid that they won't be able to find one. They're concerned about their financial future, and they're also concerned about their health and the health of their loved ones. Secondly, we have the issue of working from home, and we have people reporting a real sense of overwhelm because they're trying to balance work with the things they have to do at home. Could be homeschooling children, taking care of the home, getting out to do shopping, all of those things, with the net result being that people are thinking they're not doing anything well because they're trying to do so much. And finally is the sense of isolation and loneliness that comes from the fact that no longer do people have that community that they get at the office. Now, as I said earlier, none of us knew how this was going to unravel, and we don't know how long this is going to stay in effect. So the problem with that, other than the fact that we don't want this happening, is these high stress levels are going to stay with us for a while. And this is problematic because high stress levels lead to chronic health problems. When you've got stress and anxiety, it increases the cortisol levels in your body. And cortisol is something that we have naturally, but to keep it at a sustained high level has impacts on such things as lowering your immune system, can increase blood pressure and cholesterol. And overall, it can have an impact on your heart. So what we are interested in doing is looking at this and helping employees have a better time lowering their stress levels. We're not trying to take stress away because stress is an important part of who we are. In fact, we're hardwired with this. It keeps us alert, it keeps us safe, it's motivational. And actually, to have a little stress in life and to have obstacles that we have to overcome is part of us learning and growing. And Marion, I'm going to turn this over to you now.
Thank you. So you probably know that over lockdown, there have been many studies about the impact that this has had on people. And the Office of National Statistics showed during a month of April to May that the main cause of distress for people is loneliness. We've identified three main priorities that we think needs addressing. And the first is actually for organizations to recognize that they have a problem. You see, when you live with stress day in, day out, you learn to adapt and to cope. And so actually many people, if you ask them if they're stressed, they'll say, yeah, I'm fine. And you don't obviously learn anything about that. And that, if you ask anybody, that's a really typical reply. So the first thing is to get organizations to recognize, as I say, that they have a problem. And tied into that is, since people are not going to tell you how they are, how are you going to recognize that these problems exist? How are you going to know that your employees are stressed? And indeed, how are you going to know if you yourself are stressed? So stress comes out in emotional ways and physical as well. So as you can see, emotional symptoms, typically feeling overwhelmed is usually very high on people's list, and you'll see that loneliness is there as well. And physically, stress comes out very often. You have no energy, and you might even have noticed that during lockdown. Migraines, the Monday morning migraines, and I'm guessing pretty much everybody will recognize having tight shoulder muscles. And very often what will happen is you'll go to your doctor with any of these symptoms, and it's a bit of a wake-up call because your doctor will suddenly tell you that you need statins for high cholesterol or you might even get a diagnosis of being pre-diabetic. So stress, when we don't recognize it, as I say, very often is a trip to the doctor that alerts us to the fact that we haven't been coping very well. Stress, as Cindy has already mentioned, is really the driver behind disease. It's the number one enemy of health, of relationships, and of course, it therefore has a big impact on a company, really affecting the culture and everybody within the company. Cindy, I'll hand it back to you now.
Okay, thanks, Marion. So a lot of companies are dealing with employee health. A lot of companies offer services and products. So what makes us different, and why listen to what we have to say? Well, we think we've got a few things that make us stand out and different than other people that are out there now. For example, between us, we have decades of experience having started companies, run our own companies, managed large teams of people, and have seen firsthand the impact that chronic health can have on both employees, their colleagues, and the company itself. Secondly, we've also seen companies come in with health programs, and we've got experience of how these have worked or not worked, as the case may be, when it's come into the company. And finally, we've each had chronic illnesses, and we understand how debilitating that is on the individual. So for example, I always worked in the global energy trading and brokerage industry. And at 29, I helped launch a nuclear fuel brokerage company. And it wasn't long before I developed chronic insomnia. We had a lot of deadlines. We were in a very niche industry. We were the startup company. There was a lot of competition, and I traveled a lot. Jet lag played havoc with my sleep patterns, and it took a long time to come out of that. Years later, it came back again. At this situation, I was working for a very difficult manager, and I was managing in the company the largest division, the one that made most of the money, and I felt that I had to be on call 24/7. And I was getting, on average, somewhere between 2.5 hours to maybe 4 hours of sleep at night. And it was going on and on. I was managing because I didn't feel that I could afford to take time off because I felt that I'd be replaced in what I was doing. And the answers that I was getting, I wasn't happy with either, because people were saying you could just take sleeping pills. Not what I wanted to do. And Marion has a story as well. Would you like to share that with us?
Sure. So I have hit burnout and crashed, not once, but twice. The first time was many years ago. I used to work in property. I loved my job. I worked 24 hours a day. I worked 7 days a week. And eventually, of course, this took its toll, and I ended up with a virus, a very rare virus. I was very ill, and I had to take 6 months off work. And even when I went back to work, it took another 6 months for me to feel anything like normal. And then much later, I hit burnout again and crashed due to personal circumstances where, again, I wasn't really handling stress that well. This time, I got a diagnosis of autoimmune lupus. I took 3 months off work this time. And again, when I went back to work, it took time to really feel like I was back to normal. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're both so passionate, because when you take time off work, it's not just the time that you take off. You spend time getting better. And what we both know is it's so much easier to help people not get ill rather than help them back to health. I'll hand back to you, Cindy.
That's such a good point that you make. So what we do and what makes us stand out in what we offer is that we believe in order to have health programs be effective for employees, and by employees, I mean MDs and CEOs throughout the company, they have to be proactive, and you have to teach people tools and techniques that they can use at any time that they feel they need to have something that calms them down. And what do I mean by that? So many of you watching this will have experienced the problem of having your mind go blank when you're giving a presentation, or let's say your manager's called you into the office for a meeting, or you're defending a project that you're working on. This is caused by your stress levels rising. It shuts down the prefrontal cortex. You just can't think. How nice would it be if you had a tool that you could use? No one outside of you would know that you were doing it, and yet it would be immediately effective on lowering your stress, calming you down so that you could start thinking straight again. So what we give you are tools like this. We're not the company that's going to come in and give you PowerPoint presentations every month. We're also not the company that's going to come in and say, look, we'll organize mindfulness and meditation classes for you. And we have nothing against mindfulness and meditation. We both feel that these are very good tools to use, but it's just been our experience that these programs can be like people that say their New Year's resolution is they're going to go to the gym and get fit. They start out, they're really excited about it, but after a while, the usual excuses start coming in. You know, I don't have time. Oh, I'll just do that tomorrow. And slowly and surely, there'll be a percentage of people that just won't continue with those programs. And this is why it's important to have something that can be used quickly and efficiently, doesn't require having to set aside a certain amount of time every week to do. And Marian, I'm going to turn this back to you now.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm a great believer in meditation, but as far as I know, it's not yet acceptable to unroll your yoga mat in a board meeting. We've developed a 5-step program, which the first step is assess. And this is literally where we look at all the things going on in your life. So we look at what's going on at work, but we also look at what's going on at home, because I'm sure you're aware that very often we carry the stress from work home with us and we carry it back from home to work. At this point also we do our quantitative and qualitative tests for you, because we believe it's really important that you know what your ROI is going to be. And the what works and what doesn't looks at literally what are your current coping strategies and are they working for you? Many people actually don't know what their current coping strategies are, because let's face it, we just get on with life and do what we do. And so that takes us into the next step of analyze. And this is where we look at beliefs and thoughts and your patterns of behavior, because all of those will impact your stress levels. Reset is actually rewiring your nervous system. And we start doing this on day one, because we believe that when we give you these tools, we want you to use them immediately. We want you to use them tonight, tomorrow, in any situation where you're feeling stressed. And the embody stage is actually you have got these tools so embodied in you that you use them really without thinking. And of course, when you get to that stage, you're also building your resilience. We believe that well-managed stress leads to being very resilient. And let's face it, in this day and age, we all need to be a lot more resilient than most of us are. Cindy, I'll hand it back to you.
Oh, okay, thank you, Marian. So in the end, I hope that we've given you an idea of what we're doing and how we're passionate about helping people. We understand what the issues are, and what we want to do is give people the tools that they need so they can help themselves and lead healthy and happier lives. So we'd really love to tell you more about this, and we encourage you to get in touch with us, which you can do by using the email address that you see on the screen, which is support@catalyst-thinking.com. We hope we'll be able to talk to you soon, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.